Hi friends, Kate the Button Lady here, and today we're going to talk about canning jars and cookie tins. What do they have to do with buttons? Alright, so if you grew up like me, you probably had a cookie tin in your house that was strictly filled with sewing supplies. So first, let's talk about these cookie tins. These cookie tins were usually made by the process of lithography, and believe it or not, lithography has a really rich history with buttons too. Lithography buttons were made between 1880 and 1910, some with pictures that were mounted in a button frame. Most had no coverings or fancy borders, and sometimes pictures were held in with some steel cuts. Some lithography were covered with celluloid or other high-end glass. Those with the celluloid are hard to find in really good condition. Lithography was a process invented by a Bavarian playwright by the name Johann Alois Senefelder, and he perfected the process between 1796 and 1809. He was a German actor and playwright, and he fell into debt printing a play. He used a greasy crayon on a slab of limestone on a piece of paper. He went to work with a music publisher where he perfected the technique by perfecting the chemical process. 30 years later, a man came along who would revolutionize everything we need to know about the cookie tin. Nathaniel Courier was born in Roxbury, Massachusetts in 1813. He was the second of 4 children. Nathaniel would end up as an apprentice in a Boston lithography shop by William and John Pendleton. In 1833, he moved to Philadelphia to make a name for himself. After much tragedy in Nathaniel Courier's life, most of his artwork became very somber and melancholy, many depicting women and children and grief-stricken families. In 1852, he met James Merritt Ives, and Nathaniel ended up hiring him as a bookkeeper. James was from New York and was a self-taught artist. He was also said to be plump and jovial, very much the opposite to Nathaniel, who was very tall and stoic. By 1857, they were full-fledged partners, and they described their business as publishers of cheap and popular prints. At least 7,500 lithographs were published over the next 72 years. So next time you look around in your cookie tins, if you see a Courier and Ives, now you know where they came from. Alright, so what you may not know about canning jars, Napoleon is credited with the invention of canning. There was a man named Nicolas Appert, sorry if I'm pronouncing his name wrong, I don't speak French. But Nicholas, he was perfecting this process of preserving food in the late 1700s, and Napoleon asked for a better way to keep food to preserve for their army. So Nicholas began the process of perfecting canning in the late 1700s. He started out with soups and vegetables and was able to create a really stable process. Mason jars were invented by John Landis Mason. He was an inventor and tinsmith from New York City. He invented a machine that could cut threads into lids, which made it practical to manufacture a jar with a reusable screw-on lid. This was the difference between his design and his predecessors. Ball Canning Corporation was founded by 2 of 5 brothers in 1880 with a small $200 loan from their Uncle George. To start, they made wood-jacketed tin cans for paint and kerosene, but they soon expanded their offerings to glass and tin containers. In 1884, they began making glass home canning jars. That product established Ball as a household name. In 1887, they moved the company from Buffalo, New York to Muncie, Indiana, to take advantage of the abundant natural gas resources to make glass. So let's move on. There is still more to talk about. Another name in the canning game is Kerr, and you might have seen these. They were the producers of the wide mouth canning jar. That was their contribution. Alexander Kerr in 1915 founded the Hermetic Fruit Jar Company. Yes, that is a mouthful, instead of just calling it Kerr. In 1903, they were some of the first commercially made available jars, and they were self-sealing. The economy jars were their biggest seller since they were wide mouth and they could easily reseal. They were easy to fill and easy to seal. They also incorporated a lot from the 1903 patent, which was the metal lid with the permanent gasket. So this was very important for the canning we know today. I hope you guys enjoyed learning about these random things. And what does it have to do? Well, I think everybody has found a jar of buttons somewhere. How did they end up in there? Usually, if your grandmother was Depression era or canned, or your auntie or whoever you have these buttons from, I guarantee you had a lithography box of buttons, or a Ball canning jar, or a Kerr canning jar of buttons. It's just one of those wonderfully, you know, Americana type things that that's where we store them. But I will give you a pro tip if you're going to be collecting buttons. A lot of the older buttons like celluloid and vegetable ivory, they are not to be put in a canning jar. You don't want to keep them in a jar that is airtight. They need to breathe. So let buttons breathe. This is my PSA moment. The more you know. Having them in open jars or open containers is a better way to preserve their history. I really hope you guys enjoy this button history series. I'm hoping to make some more for you guys, and I hope they're still funny. So anyway, I hope you guys have a great week. Be good humans. Bye! What do you call it when you have your grandma on speed dial? Instagram.